In my previous videos, I talked about what to look out for in a relationship in order to ascertain whether it's an abusive relationship or not. Perhaps you're still unsure because you're constantly experiencing emotional and physical roller coaster in your relationship, where it's sweet and harmonious one day and the next it's acrimonious, and the same thing happens all over again. Well, I can tell you that you're not going crazy. This is what is called the cycle of abuse, which is what I'll be talking about today. So in this video, I'll be reviewing 4 different stages involved in the cycle of abuse. The first stage is the tension building stage. This is where your partner demonstrates a tendency to flare up at any little thing. It could be work-related troubles, it could be tiredness, illness, or a mere discussion that is not going their way. This usually leaves the victim feeling anxious, on guard, and walking on eggshell, just to avoid setting off the abuser. And over time, what you'd find is that the victim may end up feeling frustrated, having a feeling of powerlessness, injustice, and even paranoia. The second stage is the incidence of abuse stage, where your partner eventually releases the tension on you or others in an attempt to regain control and power. These incidences could be in the form of name calling, making threats. It could be physical or sexual violences, or a mere argument or emotional manipulation. And in this stage, the victim is usually blamed for pushing the abuser to act, or generally for problems in the relationship. The third stage is the reconciliation stage. This is when tension begins to fade and the abuser makes an effort to move past the incidents. They could use things like gifts, kind words, or loving gesture just to lure the victim back into a honeymoon stage. These can cause the release of certain chemical substances in the brain of the victim that helps them to feel closely bonded to the abuser again, and leads them to believing that the relationship is back to being normal. The abuser may even apologize for their action, or blame some external factors for their action, or even deny that it happened, or they may accuse the victim as provoking them to act. This leads to the calming stage, where both parties try to maintain peace and harmony. The incident is forgotten, and the abuser may go on to show remorse and promise that they won't ever do it again, it won't happen again, and start to pay more attention to the needs of the victim, tricking them into believing that whatever upset them and triggered the abuse was in the past. This is usually called the honeymoon stage, but it's usually only short-lived because the whole incident repeats itself again in what is called the rinse and repeat stage. This concludes the 4 stages in the cycle of abuse. But please note that although abuse does happen in a cycle or pattern, it usually doesn't happen in the same way all the time. So be mindful of any pattern of abuse that you may be experiencing in your relationship, and be sure to speak up if need be. Thank you for listening. Join me next week as I'll be talking about the risks of being or staying in an abusive relationship. Thank you.